What do you do when God's plan doesn't look fair? When He chooses someone else? When the door closes on you? When His decisions confuse you? Have you ever wondered, God, why them and not me? Today, we're diving into one of the most powerful and misunderstood chapters in the Bible, Romans chapter 9, written by Paul the Apostle. In this chapter, we discover a truth that will challenge your understanding, stretch your faith, and strengthen your trust in God's sovereignty. Stay with me, because what you learn today could transform the way you see God forever. 1. Paul's broken heart. Romans 9-1-5. Before theology, before doctrine, before deep revelation, we see emotion. Paul begins this chapter with anguish. He says he has great sorrow and unceasing anguish in his heart for Israel. He even says he could wish himself accursed for the sake of his people. Think about that. The man who wrote much of the New Testament, the man who planted churches across the Roman Empire, the man transformed on the road to Damascus, he is weeping. Why? Because Israel, God's chosen nation, had rejected Christ. Lesson Hazon: a heart aligned with God shows compassion, not pride. Paul understood truth, but he never lost tenderness. Sometimes we win arguments, but lose love. Sometimes we defend doctrine, but forget compassion. Ask yourself, do I grieve for those who don't know Christ? Or have I grown comfortable in my salvation? Section 2. God's Sovereign Choice. Romans 9-6-13. Paul now addresses a powerful question. If Israel was chosen by God, why are so many rejecting Him? He explains something profound. Not all who are descended from Israel belong to Israel. He gives the example of Isaac over Ishmael, Jacob over Esau. Before they were born, before they had done good or evil, God chose Jacob. This is where many people struggle. Is God unfair? Paul anticipates that question. He writes, "What shall we say then? Is there injustice on God's part? By no means." Here is the second lesson. Lesson #2. God's choices are rooted in purpose, not human performance. Election in Romans 9 emphasizes God's sovereignty, His right as creator, to unfold His redemptive plan according to His wisdom. According to scholars, the letter to the Romans was written around A.D. 57 to believers in Rome, where tensions between Jewish and Gentile Christians were high. Paul is clarifying that salvation has always been based on God's promise, not ethnicity, not effort, not human merit. It is grace. And grace, by definition, cannot be earned. Let this sink in. If salvation depended on you, you could lose it. Because it depends on God, it is secure. Section 3. The potter and the clay. Romans 9:14-24. Paul continues. He quotes God's words to Moses, "I will have mercy on whom I have mercy." Then he gives us one of the most powerful images in Scripture, the potter and the clay. Imagine clay arguing with the potter. Imagine creation questioning the Creator. Can the clay say, "Why did you make me like this?" Here is the third lesson. Lesson #3. God's sovereignty does not eliminate responsibility. It reveals His authority. This chapter does not teach that humans are robots. Throughout Romans, Paul clearly teaches faith and accountability. In fact, later in Romans 10, he emphasizes confession and belief. Romans 9 highlights God's sovereign role in salvation history. Romans 10 highlights human response. Both truths exist together. And here is the deeper truth. We struggle with God's sovereignty because we want control, but peace begins where control ends. Section 4. Mercy for all. Romans 9:25-33. Paul then quotes the prophet Hosea and Isaiah to show that God always intended to include the Gentiles. Salvation was never about one nation alone. It was always about mercy. He concludes with a striking image. Christ is the stone of stumbling. Some tripped over him. Others built their lives upon him. The difference? Faith. Statistics today show that billions still struggle with belief. According to global Christian research organizations, Christianity remains the largest religion in the world. Yet many know about Christ without truly trusting him. The same question remains. Will he be your stumbling stone or your cornerstone? So what does Romans 9 mean for you today? Maybe you feel overlooked. Maybe someone else got the blessing. Maybe life feels unfair. But hear this. God is not random. God is not unjust. God is not confused about your life. The same sovereign God who chose Jacob, the same God who raised Pharaoh for his purpose, the same God who extended mercy to the Gentiles, he sees you. And his plan is unfolding even when you don't understand it. Conclusion. Romans 9 is not meant to push you away from God. It is meant to humble you before him. It reminds us, you are saved not because you were worthy, but because he was merciful. And that truth should not create pride. It should create worship. So today, I ask you, will you trust the potter? Will you surrender control? Will you choose faith over frustration? Because when you understand Romans 9, you realize something powerful. God's sovereignty is not a threat. It is your security. If this message spoke to you, comment below. I trust the potter. Like this video to help spread biblical truth. Subscribe for more deep, life-changing scripture breakdowns. Share this with someone who is struggling to understand God's plan. And remember, even when you don't understand his ways, you can trust his heart.